G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach Sword Play for the second of our 2025 team reviews. I just had Matty Lyons on for the Bulldogs and a great response from that. So following on from Matty, I thought I need to get one of my favourite people on the planet on for this next team review. And I also need to make sure it's going to be a super relevant team. So what a perfect mix. We have Big J here from the Centre Bounce to talk everything North Melbourne. Legend, how have you been going? Thank you very much for coming on.
Mate, thanks for having me. It's I've been good. Nice to have Supercoach back. I think pre-Christmas it's all speculation, and then post-Christmas there's a lot of we can actually see things. Teams are playing well. A lot of those guys that have made Qatar trips are now coming back, apart from Sean Darcy, which we won't touch on too much. So yeah, it's been good. Life's great.
Excellent, mate. Fantastic. Well, you are the only man that we can get on for a North Melbourne team review. But before we get into it, it seems like you've got a bit of a spring in your step in 2025, Big J. Some exciting things potentially on the horizon for North Melbourne fans. But before we talk about the Roos, mate, tell us a little bit about what you and Joey have been putting out for us on the Centre Bounce, because you guys have the reputation as being the hardest working content creators out there, my friend.
Yeah, smashing it again this year. Got a few things in the works. Going to end up doing some team structure stuff, hopefully with the Skodfather in the next week or so, which would be cool. Live stream every Monday. Got our team review video coming out, hopefully this Wednesday as well. So yeah, jump on and check us out. Happy to do videos on whatever the fans want as well. So just give us a suggestion, really. Sometimes you don't know as a content creator. People have questions that they want to figure out. So yeah.
Absolutely. You guys are the place to go for all the answers. And I tell you what, I haven't actually opened up a Swordplay YouTube league yet, Big J. So this is what we're going to do. For anyone that's watching this video and you are keen to potentially get a spot in our one and only YouTube league for 2025, all we need you to do is comment down below, any comment that you like, and then make sure you go over to the Centre Bounce channel. Also give them a like and a comment over there, and you'll go in to the live draw for the first spot in our league for 2025. So if you are interested in jumping in our one and only league, make sure that you do that. And it's only January, remember, at the moment. A lot of water to go under the bridge. So the information that we give you today may not necessarily be overly relevant once we get to the start of round 0/round 1. So make sure that you do go over to the Centre Bounce for all the good oil on the Roos. But Big J, tell us about why you're so excited before we actually get into this review. Have you got high hopes for your boys this year?
Well, it's kind of two things, right? If you've been keeping up with SCN and Kane Corns, apparently the tide's lifted now at North Melbourne, and he's penciled us in for 8 wins, which is cool. First time in a very long time that it's not sack Clarko and get rid of everyone and, spend all your draft picks from him. So it's pretty exciting. It's nice as a football club. I mean, we were talking off air about it, but you yourself with Brisbane finally having, you're going over the hump. VFL team now has a lot of players that, are competing for spots in the senior list as well. So, yeah, things are looking good for us, I think. It's just time and games into the young kids.
Absolutely. And I think now you've got a really nice mix. You've obviously got some young budding superstars, but then you've got blokes like LDU who I think are just about to come into their prime. Big Tristian Xerri, what a man this bloke is. So with all of this young talent that you've got surrounding these blokes, and even adding that extra layer of experience with your Caleb Daniel, your Luke Parker, who we'll both talk about today, I really like the mix there at the moment, Big J. And yeah, even as a Lions fan, I know what it's like to be in the position that you guys have been in. As a Fitzroy fan, I lost my club, mate. So remember, we were going to merge it at some stage. It was going to be the North Melbourne Lions or the Fitzroy Kangas for a little while there, mate, back around 95, 96. So I do have a really soft spot for your boys and really, really hoping that you can make a big step this year and hopefully maybe the next 2 to 3, 4 be sitting there right at the pointy end of the ladder, mate. But let's talk some Supercoach. Now, you've only got the one bye this year, but it's known as the tricky bye. Why is that? Because we've got Carlton, yourselves, Port Adelaide, and the Doggies all with the round 12 mid-season bye. Plenty of popular options that will not be available there. So although you've only got the one, this is a little bit of a tough one. And I don't know how you're feeling at the moment, but I'm finding it extremely tough to balance this by with who I've got in my current side. So we've got you on today to take us through who the must-haves are from your side and potentially who some of those guys that we need to have on the watch list are, mate. So I think where we will actually start is in the rehab room. How are you blokes looking at the moment, mate? Now, we'll talk about in a minute who's burning up the track, who's catching your eye. But let's start with potentially some negatives. Is there anyone that you're concerned about maybe getting up for the start of the season, or anyone that's had a really limited pre-season that's going to be a relevant option for us in 2025, Big J?
Not really this year. I think we've been kind of blessed. Every year we always hear about calf complaints and whatnot. I mean, there's 2 months to go, so fingers crossed that that doesn't happen. But really, outside of CCJ, who's not Supercoach relevant anyway, there's really no one. Even the likes of Braden George is slowly starting to come into the main training and what as well. So, you know, we heard about Caleb Daniel a couple of weeks ago. Oh, he did his hammy, but he was gone for like half a training session and then came back and then just ran some laps. And then on the Friday, he was back in main training. So, yeah, we've been pretty blessed. I think fitness and whatnot has been something that the club's been developing for a very long time. So it's been about, you can imagine, right? You've got a team like North Melbourne, you're playing a lot of the kids, an 18-year-old body versus men, they're going to get injured, they're going to get sore and whatnot, hence the injury list. But I think with that natural progression development and whatnot, that we're finally seeing the fruits of that, and there's not as many injured players. You know, our 18-year-olds have now had 3 years of pre-seasons and whatnot. They know what to do with recovery and all that kind of jazz. So, yeah, injury list is looking pretty good at the moment. I mean, it's only January, so we'll see, but they're pretty happy.
Touch wood. Yeah. But that's a really good point that you make as well around North Melbourne as a side. The fact that these younger blokes, I'm talking about even the Sheezel of the world, they've had that extra year, 2 years in the gym. And having a full pre-season, particularly for a younger bloke, is so important. We can see what happens with even the more experienced players. If they had a limited or an impacted pre-season, it can be a real detriment, particularly later on the season or even starting the season once they come into the side with full fitness. So really good signs there, mate, on the injury front.
So we'll talk about rotations and stuff a bit later, but I think one of the positives of the club is that players generally will try and play a lot of positions. It's not like you're asking an 18-year-old, like Matt Rao when he came in, right? Not asking an 18-year-old to now play in the guts. And just the injury toll that it puts on their body, they might be like, cool, half the game you're here, half the game you're here, you don't be injured. So I think a little bit of management with that has kind of helped as well.
Great point, mate. Great point. All right. Who's burning up the track, mate? Now, we know you're excited. Don't get too overexcited here, mate, and throw me 42 odd names. But is there anyone in particular that's really catching your eye, or someone that you've heard some really positive reports about in the preseason state?
I mean, you can start with the draftees, right? The guys that we brought in. I mean, I won't talk Constanti too much because I don't think he's as relevant in Supercoach this year. Some people saying he's a lock. I'm like, probably not. Luke Parker's come in dominating. Even the likes of Jack Darling's come in and just really cemented kind of that spot. And you can see the change in the way that the team structure's gone already in preseason training, just with him in there. Caleb Daniel dominating as well, just kind of bringing that mature age fitness and stuff. I think one of the things, you'll know when Hodgie came to Brisbane, right? You came in with, this is what we did at our club. This is the success that we've had. This is the training standards. You have to push yourself this way. The guys have come in October and you can already see the differences compared to last year's preseason. So culmination of a few players, Harry Sheezel obviously doing really well. The 4 guys I mentioned there, McKercher as well, and just kind of a few other players. Tom Powell dominating as well. Will Phillips has come in really fit. And then there is one guy, and if JD's watching, he'll know who I'm talking about, Big Tyler Goad, who I don't think will debut at some point. But, mate, when this kid comes on, DR, he's going to be a freak. I'm talking last year. Now, I've got a bone to pick with you. Last year, that McKercher clip, better than Harley Reid, came out of nowhere and got replayed so many bloody times. I still stick by it. But picture this, 207, 208 centimetre key forward that runs like a midfielder, that has pace like a halfback, who can mark. Like, that's Tyler Goad in a nutshell. And, you know, maybe not this year, but he's going to kick Darling out of a spot at some point, and watch out.
Very, very exciting. One to put on the watch list. Hopefully sooner rather than later if he continues with that really, really exciting progression, mate. But really good to hear that there's a mix of players that are looking really good. Those experienced lads have really came in, really set the standards for the club. And I think that was probably, you know, a real target for Clarko to get some of these blokes in that have come from really professional systems. And we know that West Coast with Darling, for example, they haven't had the best run over the last few years. But remember, he's a premiership player. They were an elite side back in the day and had, some fantastic standards there. So very, very exciting stuff, mate. Now, we're going to touch on a couple of things before we get into the individual players itself. The first thing I wanted to take a quick look at here, mate, was the kicking data from last year. Now, I've got two names up here at the top, and big shout out. We're talking again off air. DFS, Morts, thank you so much for this amazing, fantastic resource. It's the best thing out there for Supercoach. And I was on a video with Swizz the other day talking about the history of Supercoach. Back in the day when I started playing, I think it was about 2007, if we had stuff like this, geez, it would have been so much easier. So yeah, big shout out to all the guys at DFS. But the two standout names here are Colby McKercher and Zach Fisher. So 91 for McKercher, and then we've got 89 for Zach Fisher. Then there's a big drop off. You can see the red line there to Harry Sheezel at 36, who we will talk about in a sec. But I think most of us are expecting him to play more of a midfield, even spend a little bit more time in the forward line, not necessarily in the defensive line. So my big question to you, Big J, and again, a little bit hard to predict, who is going to take up the slack, given the fact that there's been rumours that Zach Fisher has been training as a forward, maybe looking to get out of that defensive line. Who do you think is going to pick up the slack here, mate, and start to get the monopoly on the kick-ins at the Roos?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Zach Fisher. I think the problem with him, his accuracy is not the best. So you can put the ball in his hand where he only has to run forward, maybe goes for a goal and whatnot, similar to his kind of last season at Collingwood, versus being a distributor, the guy that kind of has to set up a lot of plays and stuff at the halfback. Those games where he took a lot of kickouts and whatnot weren't the best from the club. So, yeah, I think they're kind of just putting it more into playable hands. I think McKercher, and we'll touch on him in a little bit, but I think he's really kind of the story of North Melbourne this year. Where's he going to play? Is he going to play halfback? Is he going to play mid? Is he going to play wing? I think that's going to determine a lot. They may try and shake things up as well and just try and figure out what's going to happen. But with guys like Caleb Daniel coming in, who, if not the kickouts, he's 100% going to take the second, the guy they kick to run off halfback. Riley Hardiman potentially as well. They got guys like Luke McDonald as well. So it's a really interesting predicament at the moment. But I agree. I mean, if we look at Harry Sheezel from his debut year, came in 66 kick-ins, and then last year just like halved that. And we can see that by the notes here, right? After round 7, it just stopped when he went straight to the midfield. So it's an interesting question. I would bank on potentially McKercher taking a few, though he has been moving a little bit more to the midfield. So maybe when he's in the back line, he takes those kickouts. Or like Caleb Daniel, potentially Luke McDonald or a Hardiman as well. I mean, you'll get Aiden Core taking the odd one and stuff like that, but not as much. Tom Powell watch definitely for halfback as well. So we'll see what happens.
Excellent. We will touch on Tom Powell as well when we get to some of the midfielders. But I suppose the good thing is you've got a few good options there anyway, mate. But I'm probably agreeing there. I think Caleb Daniel should take a few kick-ins, as well as McKercher if he's down back. You want the ball in his hands, don't you? He's an elite kick. And so, I think that both those players should get a fair bit of opportunity kicking out this year, mate. All right, let's transfer quickly to the midfield and have a quick discussion about 2024 CBAs. Now, there's two names at the top here. You see yellow and a little bit of green here and there. And that's obviously Xerri and the Ruck, who we'll touch on, as well as LDU. And then we see that drop off to 66% to George Wardlaw. Then we've got 58% Phillips, 53 with Simpkin, 50 with Powell, 31 with Sheezel. Keeping in mind, as you just mentioned before, mate, for the first 7 rounds, he was playing as a defender. Mate, this may be a tough question, particularly to ask in January. What on earth's going to happen here with these CBAs, Big J? Try to help us out, because I've been trying to predict it. And there's players even on this list. You touched on someone like a McKercher before. There's a man named Luke Parker that's just come in as well, just to add himself to the mix. What's going to happen, mate? Or give us your best prediction about the North CBAs going into 2025.
Yeah, we talked about kick-ins being a tough question. I think Northern CBAs is probably another one as well. There's so many good players that can play through there. So many young bodies as well. And I think before we go into where I think players are going to play, you have to realize that these guys are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Like, they need to rest forward. They might only play 40, 50, 60% CBA times and rotate in the forward line or halfback or wing just to keep them fit as well. Like, we don't want a Matt Rao situation where they play 3-4 games, Tom Green in his first couple of seasons too, and then they just get smashed and, you don't see them for the rest of the year. So, Xerri, 100% locked in as the ruck. I think Jack Darling may take a couple of CBAs as well. Has been doing some ruck time. I don't know if Teagle's going to feature as much this year in that. So maybe he rucks in the forward line or takes a couple in the midfield when Xerri's on the bench. LDU, 100% going to take main as well. And then it kind of breaks into the rest. I think Harry Sheezel's lining up a lot in the midfield group, and we might find that, rotation being either LDU as the centre and then Harry Sheezel and Wardlaw as the guy with the rover. You know how when they do the team sheets? Or some vice versa of that in there. I think those three are going to be the main three. And then it's the rest that are going to facilitate everyone. So Jai Simpkin will probably rotate with a Luke Parker off half forward and then midfield. Same with the Tom Powell, same with the Phillips. Hopefully he gets a spot. He's been training quite well in the preseason, and being contract year, I think they have to kind of play him. Otherwise it's see you later. And we saw that with guys like Lazaro last year, and even Curtis Taylor, who's now training with Eyes VFL. Like, if you don't play in your mid-20s, like, see you later, really. We've got draftees like Urquhart, who's been displaying some really good things over the preseason as well. Mid-80, 180 centimeter midfielder who just has the power and the know-how. He just jumps in and then just like handballs the ball out. And there might just be a spot for him because these players don't get down and under. And then we'll talk about Finn O'Sullivan as well, DR, who you didn't even mention, who is looking like a round one debut again. So, mate, we could be the most rotated midfield ever, but it just means that everyone's getting their taste. And I think we were talking about it off air. It's not such a big negative because North Melbourne generally in Supercoach has been getting smashed. When we start winning some more games and being more competitive, that means more points to be shared around. So, like, it just works out better.
I reckon North may be the first time ever to be disqualified for having 30 players on the field
mate,
in a game.
I didn't even mention Zerha. I didn't mention Zerha. I didn't mention Curtis and potentially a Dersma as well, getting their like 5% CBAs at some point throughout the game too.
It's crazy. It's so hard to predict. I know for our season guide, Janeth and Pig have been predicting the top 4 CBA mids for each club. So that's going to be a good read, Big J. And I'm really looking forward to what they think, because I probably agree with you. I think that LDU's probably that lock in there. As I said, coming into his prime, we look at the numbers last year. I don't think that really changes. And someone like Georgie Wardlaw, he's that next gen, isn't he? He's an absolute beast, an absolute machine. So I'd really like to see him get some decent time in there. And then you've got the Shees. So I'd probably say they're going to be my main 3 in there. And then that you just mentioned, like, even that transfer between a Simpkin and a Parker, similar game styles. They can both play mid, both play forward. The great thing, as you mentioned, from a North's fan perspective, is competition for spots and a variety of options here, and players with different playing styles and game styles as well. So you can work out what your most dangerous mix is, which is fantastic.
I think one of the things as well is that people are getting scared away by training reports of, Harry Sheezel started forward and, LDU spent some time in the goal square and whatever. I think it's more just about, I think it's more just about managing rotations and getting, like, being a young team. I think we're still the first or second youngest team in the AFL. Maybe Richmond's taken over us now. But just managing rotations and things like that as well, keeping your good players on the park so they can influence games. If that means that the likes of LDU, instead of spending 3 or 4 minutes on the bench, can potentially kick a goal in the forward line, or at least take away a good defender from someone else, that's better than keeping him off the field. And just kind of the newer players, maybe the guys who aren't as fit, giving them a little bit more time on the bench to keep fit as well. It all goes back to management, really. So don't be scared about, cool, he started here or whatnot. You know where the good players are going to play. It's just like, cool. People get fussed about, oh, he started on the bench. And it's like, cool, for 3 minutes he didn't play and then he played the rest of the quarter. So it doesn't really matter as much, you know.
That's really good advice, because I know that I think we've all been guilty of it in the past. You know, we jump at shadows with a preseason training report here and there. Someone's on fire, let's lock him in the side. We can be very reactive to these reports, and we've got to remember there is so much time. Well, it's coming very quickly, but there is a lot of time before the start of the season. So that's really good advice, Big J. Good discussion, mate. All right, let's get into some individual players now. We're going to start with the Shees. 99.5 in his rookie season. Very rare. I wish, can we just give him that 0.5 just to play average? Surely he deserves just a little 0.5 to get him there. But he followed that up with 118 in 2024. Only 3 sub-tons. Huge ceiling, 159, 141, and a 160 being his top 3. Mate, he's my D1 for 2025. I don't know how you feel about this, but is he just an automatic lock, regardless of if he spends a little bit more time forward with that midfield role? Is it just a matter of just get him in, lock him in, don't think about it?
I think we're going to start having these conversations similar to what we're having with Bont at the moment, being like, cool, Bevo wants to potentially play a little bit of forward. Does that mean you're not going to pick Bont? And it's like, well, no, then he's going to kick goals. I mean, Harry Sheezel has the potential to do that. The kid can play anywhere. He's 20, and now he's the 4th most expensive Supercoach player at 20. I don't think that's going to stop. I think he's going to get better and better and better, and we're going to play him similar to Dacos probably for the next 10 years or so, just being like, cool, lock them in, pick your rest of your team. So, yeah, I think we saw last year, I mean, we had the CBA numbers up before, but we saw when there was a shift halfway through the season, and I would say 20 to 30% of the competition jumped off him. We're just like, oh, he's going to play midfield now, no more kick-ins, that's it. And, they paid for that pretty quickly. So, yeah, good players around the ball just score well in Supercoach, I think. Similar to a lot of the Brisbane players, they might play some time forward, they might play some time back, moving around. Cool, he's going to play wing. I think good players just get the ball, and that's going to be Harry Sheezel this year. Continue it on. So, the kid's a freak. I think North in general drafted him as a mid-forward. But we kind of play our debut players through that halfback just to get the game fitness and whatnot into them. Yeah. So it's not going to affect him too much. I mean, I can see, what is he averaged? 118. I can see him doing a 125 probably this year pretty easily. I mean, the team's getting better. So does that mean that he has 3 or 4 points every game of natural progression? Probably. Those kicks that he bullet shoots into the forward line now result in goals instead of points, or result in a score instead of a poor disposal, so he gets that extra points there. I mean, it's not hard. It's a bit exciting to own him, and I think people who are fading him at the moment, I can understand it, but halfway through the season, man, you're going to be chasing this guy if you don't have him.
100%. Look, I was going through all his numbers, going through his detailed stuff, and after
20 DR, he's 20.
Yeah, after a couple of minutes, I'm going, it's not worth it. I'm just going to tell everyone, just get him in your side. Like, just don't worry about the numbers and all this. Just trust me on this one. Start Harry Sheezel. I think he's just an automatic lock and load, and really in whatever role he's played, whether or not that's coming off halfback, in the midfield, even spending that time forward. As you said, draft is that mid forward. That's a great thing about him. He's just so dangerous all over the ground. Versatility isn't necessarily a great thing for Supercoach. We want just a locked-in role. But for someone like Harry Sheezel, the great thing is, for example, if he's getting a bit of a tough tag in the midfield, well, let's go forward and kick a couple of snags up there. He's got the talent to do so.
Well, now he just takes kick-ins for the next quarter, Like, cool, thanks, guy. Thanks.
Even better. I'll take the kick-ins over. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Lock and load the man. All right,
And,
it's time
and
for me
only
to
one
sit.
buy as well.
Exactly right, mate.
Yeah.
Big J, it's time for me to sit back now. We have a Twitter chat. With all the great guys on there. Always have some really, really great discussion, banter. It's a fantastic chat that all the boys are in. But Big J's been a big advocate all pre-season. He's going to be a primo. Get him in. Come on, DR. Join me on the McKercher train. I'm just going to sit back here now. You can see the first point there, Big J's boy. I'm just going to let you take over, mate. I'm going to sit back and try to let you, and not a matter of selling him to me, but tell us why you should get this bloke into your side.
I think he was really frustrating for a lot of owners last year. Kind of started the season really well with a couple of scores of 80s and 90s, almost cracked 100 in his second AFL game, which is pretty good for the player. Had what, 3 or 4, I think I'm just reading it now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games with 30 plus disposals or more last year. Quite a few high Supercoach scores as well with a 146. The foot injuries definitely hurt, but he did play every game after round 17 last year as well. So he's coming to the preseason super fit, super ready to go. I think there's more of a defined role of where he's going to play, but going back to kick-ins and then rotations and stuff too, he's so versatile that similar to a Sheezel, they want to put the ball in his hands because stuff happens. And I think those type of players are really good. Similar to a Dan Houston, right? You know Port when they're down or they want to make they want to make an impact. Give him the ball, he'll do something. I think that's what McKercher is going to be like. The only downside with him is the awkward price, but he was 18 and then now he's 19 and he's almost a primo. Like, it kind of just shows how good of the scoring he is. I really expect really big things from him, and I'm trying to force him in my team at the moment. It's just that awkward price. So just kind of figuring out what that is. But yeah, watch and learn from this guy. He's going to be fantastic this year. Next year, he's going to be like Sheezel, and hey, you have to put him in your team. And it works out well because I think Sheezel will most likely be a middle or a forward. So then you don't have to have 2 Roos players in the same line again.
Big J, looking ahead to 2026. That's what I talk about. Hey. Elite planning, my friend. Look, I suppose, although we're not 100% sure whether or not it's going to be mainly back, mainly mid, the great thing about either one of those positions is they're both going to be lucrative roles. If he plays in that midfield, I can see him having a real impact. The Sheezels, the LDUs might be the type of blokes that are copping more attention at times. He might be able to fly under the radar slightly. The only slight concern I've got when it comes to any potential role is probably the wing role. Traditionally, even the best wingers in the game, going back to Andrew Gaff types, haven't been elite Supercoach scorers. But if it's stints on the wing, I can probably live with that. I just don't want to see a trend of him getting too much time on that wing.
What do you consider to be like an elite score? Like when you say, hey, they're not, what would you be happy with? Because defender in Supercoach is different than a midfield score. Remember, top mids are scoring 115, 120. Whereas I think this year, like the maybe 4 or 5 in the back line were scoring 110 and then everyone else kind of tapered off. So what are you saying is, what level of scoring, what prediction would you be happy to select him at? If I could say, DR, by the end of the year, he's going to average this number, what would you be happy with?
I'll tell you what, if you could tell me right now that I can lock in Colby McKercher at this price, and I'm thinking probably D6 at 105 average, I'll take that. Cool. I'll take that. I don't want to be too greedy. Look, 88.5 last year, as you said, dealing with some foot issues as well. I think there's a lot of upside to the pick. It's all about role, and it seems like 2 out of the 3 roles that are most likely going to be projected for him this year are going to be really lucrative roles. If he stays away from that wing most of the time, I'm a big fan. And if you give me 105, just say, there's your D6 for the year. Beautiful at this price. I would absolutely take that, mate. How about yourself? What would you...
over 100 plus, I think, is definitely the way to go. If we take away his 2 lowest scores, which were round 5 when he got injured, and it was only a 6, and then round 6, I think something had happened, and and he only scored a 34. If we take away those two scores, he averaged 98.3 already. So if you take away his injury
10
game.
points on the bone. That is 10 points on the bone.
Already. So that's without natural progression. That's without just game experience in general. So the guy's almost there already if you take away his injury game. I think he's very, very good. He might be the steal. It just depends on North getting better and, Supercoach and whatnot. But friendly predictions-wise, I'll say it again, DR, better than Harley Reid, mate. You watch out.
Hey, we've got a long time for this to play out, Big J. And if he continues like he did last year, could give Mr. Reid some stiff competition, Colby. But hey, be right with this bloke playing in his side, mate. So look, I'm with you. He is definitely on the watch list. Definitely on the watch list. It just makes it tough when you've got the Dogs, the Port. Can I add another North player to my current side? Well, we'll see what happens, mate. But for those maybe that aren't as loaded up and absolutely set on players from that round 12 bye, this is a bloke, and we talk about upside, Big J, and breakout contenders. The definition of a potential breakout contender, isn't he? Colby McKercher.
Yeah, I think if you don't start him, and I can understand, cool, your team structure doesn't work, whatever, you will be looking to bring this guy in after the round 12 bye. You'll be like, throw McKercher in my team, D6, whatever. Cool. I think that's going to happen. Beautiful,
mate. All right. Let's switch lanes now and get into the big boys in the midfield, mate. We've got LDU. Now, last year, a bit of an indifferent sort of start to the season, but season averages 101, 113, 109. This is what he did last year, mate, and you'll be well aware of this. 121, 105 to start off. We're thinking, yeah, not too bad. The professor, Janeth, actually started with LDU and was actually one of the few people I know that did start him, that actually kept on to him through this poor phase, because after that 105, he went 67, 88, 87, 101, 112, that's okay, and then a 90. That's not what we want from our premium midfielders. However, after that, he really got himself into gear, mate. 109, 152, 117, 114, 147, 148. And for those people that actually held the faith that started LDU, and for those people that actually jumped on him at a bargain price, they would have been rewarded for the next couple of months in particular. So looking to this season, mate, 109.1, do you think he's going to improve on that? And what's the upside to him? Why are we going to select this guy over, say, a Sarong at maybe 40K extra, or even if you go down to my pod like an Ed Richards at 531? Why are we selecting LDU this season, or why aren't we going to select LDU, Big J?
Yeah, it's a really we talk about 450K to 500K in the defense being a weird position and just awkward. I think kind of 588K, that period between 550 and 600, when you downgrade from a player, or they're not, you're not getting that value. I understand Sarong to Brayshaw there just being same team and whatnot, but it's a really awkward price. If we go off Cool's first question, is he going to improve? 100%. I mean, taking away contract year, I just think the team getting stronger and him getting fitter. You watch the preseason photos, DR, mate. You know how he looks in this picture? Jack, bro, it's like you see the veins, you see the ripples, everything. Like he's gone nuts. I think just the strength of having guys like Parker and Daniel, a little bit more disposal efficiency, guys to actually feed him the ball as well, really help. I wouldn't start him. I know a few people have. I think we've kind of got our locks in Supercoach. And if you want to go someone a little bit different, but it's just the price. But you look to, similar to a McKercher, bring him in after the bye. Perfect post-bye player, as North will get better. If you want to start him, cool. He'll be a nice pod. You probably see similar to what we saw last year, end of 2023, end of 2024 type numbers. I just think as North gets better, LDU will get better as well. Will he be the main target? Potentially. But I think just, you think about it, Brisbane, right? Would you say Neil is the main target? Would you say Ashcroft is the main target? Would you say Dunkley is the main target? When you've got a good team, a good midfield, they can all score really well, but when maybe one doesn't do as well, the other ones pick up. And I think that's going to be the same with Luke as well.
True.
As Sheezel comes to the midfield, if he gets a bit more attention, cool, LDU goes back. So maybe they have to balance it up and they can all go big. I'm expecting probably a if he keeps the trajectory like I think he's going to do, I would probably say maybe add another 5 or 6 points pretty easily to his score. So 115, 117, I think, this year. It's very, very doable for him, barring injury.
Yeah. And I like what you said there about a potential upgrade target after the bye, because when I put him on the table with the other round 12 options that we've got,
he's
just not overly high on my priority list. So I think that's a really good point that you make. The perfect upgrade target, if you're a little bit unsure about how he's going to be going to start the season, all the rest is going to be similar to last year, it just gives us that time, doesn't it? It gives us data in the bank to be able to make a more informed decision. And hey, even if we're paying, 610, 620, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'd almost rather have to pay that in order to have that data and be really confident in being able to select LDU as a premium midfielder. So I like the way that you're thinking forward there with LDU.
You know who we're playing first after post-bye, DR?
No.
You guess? West Coast. So first game after the bye. Oh, West Coast, get in.
That is so juicy. That makes him an even better upgrade. I didn't realise that, mate. So I'll tell you what, rubbing your hands together.
Lock him in.
All right, mate. Now, let's talk about this beast. We touched on him a little bit with the CBAs and all the rest, but it's George Wardlaw, one of my favourite players at North. I just love the way that he goes about it. A no-nonsense type footballer, not a flashy type. I couldn't imagine him walking around wearing a pair of Gucci sunglasses or anything like that, mate. I reckon he's more of a $5 Thailand type man. And that is a compliment. That is a compliment, believe me, because I'm that sort of man. But I love everything about him. I don't think it's a question of whether or not he ever becomes a premium. If it's when, for me. The big question is it going to be this year? Now, we know that it's tough selecting too many players with this buy, and we keep on bringing up the buy, I know. But is there enough upside in George Wardlaw for there to be a world where we start him over an Oliver, a Day, a Parrish, a Shearer, an Ashcroft? There are so many options around this price. Is there a world where we can actually go with Georgie boy, you think, Big J?
This year is not his year. I think potentially next year or the year after is. It's an awkward price similar to an LDU. There's guys who are cheaper, there's better. There's guys who like a Will Day for 30K more who, would probably, you can guarantee as being a better selection, I think. Would you pick him over Ashcroft? Probably not. Would you pick him over Oliver? Probably not. How many of those players are you going to put into his team? So I think circumstance, definitely. If you've got him in draft, fantastic. Like 4th, 5th round pick, people will forget. Biggest problem with Wardlaw is just his time on ground. There's a lot of 70s and a couple of late 60s, like 68%, like 71, 72 type percent games. He's been working quite a lot on his fitness, a lot of track watches, and I've seen it coming to North training quite a lot where he'll be running laps and just busting his guts all the time, and the main players are kind of doing some drills, and it's just about getting that time on ground up. If he comes in and says, cool, I'm going to play 10% more game time, that's 10% more to added probably to his Supercoach score, which is going to mean a lot better in Supercoach. So not his year, definitely going to play CBA mid, probably going to be locked in. So what are we talking about? LDU, Sheezel, Wardlaw as the number 1, 2, 3. But you got to remember, the kid's 20. So are we expecting like a 25-year-old's numbers for him? Not yet. But one thing I'll tell you about North Melbourne's midfield, DR, I think outside of like one player, everybody is a top like first round pick. So they're all very, very good. It's just time. That's all it is. So give him next year. I put his trajectory similar to like Tom Green from 2 years ago, where some of us picked him some of us picked him at around a similar price. He went okay at the start and then fell off a little bit. I think that's going to be Wardlaw. And then next year or the year after, we're going to get him at around that mid 550 mark, and then it'll be the real question. But Supercoach is such a sport where you have to you weigh up the player versus other players as your selection, right? So how many 600K guys can I have? How many 500K? Which 400K players? So go back to Day, Oliver, Ashcroft. He's number 4 in that list easily. So he'll play really well. He'll do fantastic. You'll see an increase in scoring just from his natural fitness. I think guys like Parker in there as well have already helped to push him a bit, being up that ferocity and whatnot. But are you going to pick him over Oliver DR?
Yeah, no.
Exactly
Me.
right. So,
Not for me, mate.
Yeah.
Nah, couldn't
beautiful
agree
thing
more.
about Wardlaw is he can't really play. Like Simpkin can play, and we'll touch on Simpkin next, but Simpkin can play forward if he wants and play midfield. I think Wardlaw is just pure mid. So that's where he will be.
Yeah, love it, mate. And I'm not a North fan and don't have the insight that you do, but that's exactly the way that I was thinking about this pick as well, mate. Probably not this year, but hey, we're going to have you on next year. And you heard it here first. It's going to be George Wardlaw, at least 550k mid, we think.
There you go, lock it in alongside McKercher as primo.
Well, when we're done, I'm going to prepare the slides for next year, mate. So we'll get McKercher up there as well, and we'll get Georgie boy at your 550, mate. All right, Tommy Powell is another bloke that you touched on very, very quickly when we were discussing some of the players that were running hot in the preseason. Now, a bit of a different, a bit of a split role, wasn't it, last year? So a very high CBA mid at times, and I actually brought him in. It worked out.
Me too.
Not the best. Not a disaster, I don't think. And then towards the back end of the season, at times, I actually saw him playing out of the back line. So although he did frustrate a lot of coaches last year, he is at an extremely awkward price, and I don't think there's going to be too many that's selecting 0.2 at the moment. What can you quickly tell us about Tommy Powell and his prospects for 2025, mate?
I think we'll see a similar thing. He's really coming to preseason fit. Like we talked about LDU and the body change. Powell's probably, you can look at that body and add 5 kilos in definition on there, and then you'll see what Tom Powell's been like. I think he'll play a mix of mid, half, back. The problem with North Melbourne is, it's been talked about a lot. We draft a lot of midfielders, and similar to a Phillips, it's just about, we want these guys to play. We just have to find a role. So there's been some talk at the moment that potentially he's been doing some half-back stuff, playing through the mid as well. Really nice distributor and clean enough hands. So it's just about finding the spot for him. Selectable in Supercoach, probably not. Just a weird, awkward price like Wardlaw as well. Same kind of comments there.
Yeah.
If he was a forward selection, there's a world where I see it if he's playing like a really good role, but it's just awkward, mate.
It is a very, very awkward price, mate. But again, you touched on Supercoach draft before. Maybe keep him in your draft plans. A bit of a sneaky selection towards the back end somewhere. All right, mate. Let's get on to this guy now. Similar to Harry Sheezel, he's just not left my side. One of the first pick now. Only 4 sub-tons last year, but take a listen to his floor: 82, 90, 91, 96. I can live with that floor. However, let's take a look at his ceiling. 8 scores of 130 plus. 131, 133, a pair of 141s, a pair of 144s, a 151, and a 185. We know that he's a tackling beast, one of the best tacklers in the competition, 7.5 on average. What an absolute beast this guy is, mate. Contested possession king as well, 12.6 there. 25 years of age. We know that the big fellas take a little bit more time. We know that a couple of years ago, St Kilda were all over this bloke, and I was expecting North to go, yeah, we'll take your 3rd round pick, but North knew what they had on their hands here and said, go and get stuffed, Saints. And I'm glad they did, because this bloke, in my personal opinion, is one of the first locks that you should have in your Supercoach side going into this year. Am I too excited, Big J? Are there any red flags with this pick? Tell us what you think, your very unbiased opinion of our man, Tristian Xerri.
Yeah, very unbiased opinion about North Melbourne. All I have to say at the start is thank you very much, St Kilda, for not offering us a 2nd round pick to get Xerri. That's all it would have cost you, like a pick in the 30s, and you could have got the superstar gun. I look
Ron
at their
Carroll,
team.
don't listen.
Marshall's injured. Boyd apparently might have something it's all off the rails at the moment. So yeah, very, very breakout year last year. Joe hates me at the moment whenever I bring up Xerri, because somehow I convinced him not to get him at 600k, and then
you're a great mate.
400k last year. I mean, it was him and Max Gawn, right? So I told him no Xerri. He told everyone no Max Gawn, and then he got neither, and then look what happened. So
poor bugger.
Just dominating. I think there's a big difference in Supercoach with people who solo ruck and then people who will have a second, like a Luke Darcy Sean Darcy, Luke Jackson type situation, where, hey, they may share a bit of time and whatnot. Cherry, main ruck. We spoke a little bit before about Darling taking a couple of hit outs. Do we play Teakle or not? If we don't, does that mean Cherry goes bang even further? I think there's still development time for him. People have commented and said, look, Cherry's scoring might go down a little bit just with North getting better, because Cherry does like to get the ball and run. But then I say to them as well, if North's team's getting better, doesn't that mean that he's going to get more hit outs to advantage because the midfield's actually getting more of the ball as well? So I think we can see comparable scoring, probably a 120 plus. If that makes him ruck 1 or 2, cool, no worries. I think with the flex this year as well, the strategy kind of, if you haven't started 3 rucks, you're going to have 3 by the end of the year. One of those will be Cherry barring injury. So do you start him? If not, you're going to bring him in at some point. He is a little bit expensive, but I mean, we know what his scoring can do, right? Tracking preseason, he hasn't been injured. Nothing's happening. Still wearing the helmet, which is cool. So, he's just been doing really well. So, like, there's nothing bad. It reminds me of Max Gawn, how we used to just lock in Max Gawn for years and years and years. And you know what you're going to get out of him. I think that's going to be Cherry. He potentially could take a couple more marks and kick a couple more goals, which increases his scoring as well. But like, you're probably going to get a 120 and just be happy.
Beautiful. More than happy with that. And I think the great thing about him is when it comes to your vice captain and your captain, I think he's an option basically each and every week. And we always need to look at matchups and all the rest. But most weeks, I think you can either lock him in as a VC or C. Yeah. We talked about last year, 4 sub tons, 8 130 plus. I mean, come on. He's a great option, mate.
Yeah, I think this year especially, there's so many question marks about rucks. I mean, we're even hearing TDK, is he going to solo ruck? What's happening with me? Yeah. All these things. Like, just lock in the play, you know what's going to happen. If you have to pay 100K more, do it. Because it's certainty. And trading out rucks is the worst thing you can do. It always sets you back. Just lock and load, like we say, every year.
Every year, mate, whether I start with a Sam Naismith or do something stupid.
You're going to go Boyd and Flynn, R1, R2 this year to save some cash,
Mate, I've learned, just don't stuff around. I just lock them in and this bloke for me, mate. Yep, agree. Absolute lock and load. Now, we won't spend a heap of time on this selection, I don't think, Jai Simpkin, but hey, with Mateus Philippou going down, and this is very recent news, just today on the day of recording, someone like a Simpkin may just slightly enter people's minds. So should we be doing the right thing here and telling people to stay away from the Simpkin selection, Big J? Or do you think that there's actually some relevance to the pick here in 2025?
I think we'll talk about a player next who probably is a better selection just price-wise. I think Simpkin is going to rotate quite a lot through the midfield, and you're probably going to get the ups and downs like we saw last year. For me, he definitely was a nice player to bring in post-buy and saved me a little bit, just kind of getting those cheeky 100s or close to it in a rather depleted forward line. I think for a lot of people, there weren't many players scoring 100s every week. So worked out quite well. Look to bring him in if he ends up being like 300K at some point, but it's not a starter. Like, we've talked about how much rotations are going to be through North's mid and whatnot. There's better options for the price, and that's what you have to look at in Supercoach. Do you want to bring in a guy in your forward line who now has the round 12 bye again that you're not even sure about? Probably not. So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely agree, mate. And look, some people may ask, well, why on earth are we talking about Jai Simpkin? I think we need to touch on these plays because we can see there with the ownership percentage, currently 1.2% of coaches are on Jai. And hey, I'm sure that Big J's a North fan hopes that this works out for you and he hits the 600K mark because that means he's absolutely dominating. But with all the other options that we've got, particularly in our forward line this year, I just don't think he's going to be overly relevant. The next man, though, and the next man after that, I think potentially could be Lukey Parker. Now, last year, obviously didn't play a heap of football, injury, and then obviously that suspension as well. So he did play 3 games as a sub. So that was around 18, 20, and 21. Scores from those games, 56, 68, and then 23. Other scores, and these are not including finals, 70, 109, 68, 102 for an average of 87.2 compared to his season average of 70.9. So that's already 16 points upside. if you take those sub games out compared to his season average here, mate. So with Philippou going down, with the potential for some midfield time, as well as maybe having impact up forward as well, what are your thoughts on selecting Lukey Parker at 32 years of age? Is there a world where we can start with him, Big J?
I love him. I think he's great. I think he's fantastic. I'm very happy that Sydney said, cool, we'll take your pick in the 40s and you can have Luke Parker. But barring age, I think he hasn't skipped a beat. I mean, if we look at his kind of scoring and whatnot in Supercoach, we know how much he got dicked around by Sydney last year.
Yeah.
Few high half forward games, few sub games as well. Previous to that, the guy scored a 96 average. And if you do that in Supercoach in our forward lines, it's a lot. If you do that at 340K DPP, it's a big lock. So he has a good buy, I think, kind of comparison-wise, poo replacement 100%. You can do a lot worse. And yeah, he's in my team at the moment. Just kind of looking at the way that he plays as well, they want him to get the ball. We saw in the grand final how good he still was last year. Like, it wasn't like he was 30. I look at a Ben Cunnington, right? They're not the same type of player, but you see kind of those lumbering guys as they get older and stuff. I would compare him almost like a Dane Zorko, where they guys get in their 30s and they've still got a lot to go. They've spent their whole career training quite well, never really had huge injuries and whatnot, and are still going. So, yeah, I think if you're one of those people that, you know, went 4 or 5 deep in your forward line and you're looking for a Philippou replacement, 100%. Track him over the preseason like everyone else, but you could expect a 90+ from him, I think. He'll get some midfield time. He'll kick goals. He'll play high half forward and rotate with a Simpkin through the middle, so he'll get some CBAs. But the beautiful thing with him is he doesn't need them. He can kick goals as well, and I think he'll end up being that player that isn't marked in the forward line, which just makes him more dangerous. So I really like him. Maybe wasn't as big of an option, but I was tossing up between him and Bailey Smith already. So now that Pooh's out, like, it's fine, you know. So, yeah.
Well, 16.3% ownership at the moment. With Pooh out,
the preseason games, that will go up.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you're predicting after the preseason games. I reckon in 2 to 3 days, that's got to be at least at 19. I'm adding a little bit there from Pooh. I was really hoping, Big J, that you'd tell me, DR, he's too old. He's 32. Don't worry about him. We've got too many round 12 buy plays. You've got Ed Richards. You've got the Bont. You've got Sheezel. You've got Xerri. You probably got McKercher after this video now as well. What the hell am I going to do?
The beautiful thing about his price, though, is that we can both agree that he's probably underpriced for his scoring,
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Just look at
the beautiful thing
last year.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about his price is that by round 7, 8, 9, 10, he's maxed out in price anyway. So if you look to go and upgrade him, it doesn't matter that he's got the round 12 buy or not. You can get the next best forward that maybe broke out that you didn't have. You can now get a Horn Francis or a Shy Bolton or someone that doesn't have the round 12 buy at a similar price, and you've now got similar scoring. So he doesn't have to be a lock for the entire year, but his price to scoring potential is so good that you can just carry him for the first few weeks, make some money, scores well, doesn't have an early buy, and you're laughing at that point. So he's not like a Sheezel that you'd keep the whole year. You've got to take the round 12 buy into consideration as much. You can just look, it's a 300K cash cow that's going to get you to 450, 500K with comparable scoring that you can offload later. So it's worthwhile in that respect.
I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah. Just
I'm thinking
let him score, make some money, and then you can trade him off. It's fine. And he's got DPP, so you can move him to the midfield and run him for a while.
I hadn't really considered it, mate. But in saying that, Peatling, who I'm currently running with in my midfield, is at a very, very similar price. Yeah. And I'm planning on doing that with the Peatling. So why not, if you've got high hopes, with someone like a Luke Parker? It's an interesting strategy because I hadn't considered the thought of offloading him and making even 100K and doing the job for us of giving us those decent on-field scores, hopefully making 100, even better, 150K, and then actually offloading him. It's certainly a strategy, mate. it's and one that I wasn't contemplating.
Yeah.
But I like it. I don't mind it at all, mate. So Lukey Parker, get him on your radar, at least have him on your watch list and really track his pre-season. Make sure you checking out the centre bands regularly for updates there as well. Oh, look, how much discussion do we need here? Now, Big J, current ownership for this man, Caleb Daniel, 69.9%. Would you agree? Let me do the quick math so I don't make, I'm a teacher here, 30.1. Would you agree that 30.1% of coaches are absolutely out of their mind for not having this bloke in their team? Surely that ownership, if people aren't taking the P155, should be 100%. Are we in agreement?
I think it just kind of shows, we always talk about people making dud teams and fall off in Supercoach post probably round 5 or 6 and stuff. I think that just kind of shows who's serious about playing the game and who's not, really. I mean, we know how good he is. We know why he's moved. We know where he plays, his prime age, prime position. We commented off there about, you know, sub 300K North Melbourne halfbacks available in the forward line and how they turn into primos for the entire year. Hall, Zeeble, now Caleb Daniel as well. I think that Zach Fisher from like last year as well. So yeah, like, you know, it's going to happen. We're going to give him the ball. He's going to do really well. Why is he not in your team? I understand some people wanting to stack the forward line a little bit, so throw him in the midfield. Like, you've got 8 spots. Just put him in your team. So yeah, he hasn't missed a beat. One thing I have to say though, I think he hasn't been wearing his helmet at training. So maybe that's like he's taken off the helmet that you ever watch Dragon Ball Z or Naruto where like they wear the weighted clothing and then they take it off. That's like Caleb Daniel with the helmet, right? So takes it off and he's like, whoa. Yeah, he's really good. I'm very, very happy that we got him in. A lot of people commenting on like we had to give up pick 25 for him and whatever. I think for what we got out of the player, right age, right position, scoring potential, leadership in the back line, like I'm very happy for what it is. We don't need more kids. We've got to pick up a player who's like not going to be best 22, and we get that for a pick 25. So I'm very happy on that regard. Yeah, he's very, very good.
I love it, mate. And
look, going to play 23 games every year. So
I think so. I think so, absolutely, mate. And look, I was trying to be nice here and thought, look, you always see him with the helmet. Let's get that nice head of head there. And then Big J's give me a little whack on. DR, you've made him look even smaller. You've actually done him a bit of a dirty here, mate. So I do apologize, Caleb. I just wanted a nice photo there with the locks out. But it seems like, Big J, that potentially we could see the locks out on field, which would be very rare. And one other thing that I need to thank you for, and hopefully I would have managed to realize this myself, but I was chatting with you on Twitter and I said, this is going to be brilliant because Daniel's going to be a defensive forward and someone that we can actually switch between the defensive forward line. And Big J just commented, sorry, DR, he's already a mid forward, mate. Don't get your hopes up that high. He can't be that good for us. You know, we're not going to give him triple DPP.
Oh, he'll get it too. So. He'll be the one.
He deserves. Hopefully, he'll deserve it, mate. But yeah, that's just another thing to keep in mind. I was planning on, thinking, I could switch him here and do that. But it's, hey, you can still switch him into your midfield if you need to. It's handy. Your flex. So hey, still 3 available positions for him, just not the ruck and defense. Unfortunately,
I think worst case scenario, similar to a Parker, if he doesn't end up being a primo at 260K, offload him at 450. Get a primo in. It's not the end of the world. You're paying 200K for a guy that's going to average 80s. Like, cool. It's not bad. So, like, get that percentage up, fellas. Come on.
That's
more North relevant players in Supercoach. Let's go.
Come on. I know you can't be serious if you don't have Caleb Daniel, people. Yep. Big J, we're going to finish off with 3 rookie Roos. Well, I was planning on 3, but there's also another name that you would like to add to the mix here that I haven't currently got on screen. But the blokes that I do have on screen, mate, we've got Finn O'Sullivan, $199,000 mid, obviously a really early pick, elite junior. We've got Luke Urquhart, $113,500 mid, that's been sending some waves through the preseason, and Matty Whitlock at $113,500 with potentially handy status as a defensive forward option. So Mate, what can you tell us about some of the rookie Roos? And is there a world where we see some early debuts from some of these blokes?
Well, I think Foss is going to be. It's funny, people call him Foss the fossil. So you might hear fossil out on the field. Kind of fits in with his name, right? Just kind of squashed down. I think he's the one that debuts round one. Speaking to a lot of draft people and whatnot, the guy's a freak. He's very, very good. And we're slowly seeing that at training. North Melbourne early round draft picks. I'm not going to say he's Harry Sheezel 2.0, but he's very, very good. And kind of fills a little bit of a need, I think, where that Taron Thomas dropped, kind of being that silky type player, really athletic, really good bullet pass, kicks on field. Maybe doesn't accumulate those 30 touches, but the 25 he gets are very, very good and set something up. He looked bigger in the preseason too. Like, I don't know when that photo got taken, but you can add some definition to that. He's just a very, very good player and warranted for the pick. Speaking to, I don't know if you know Dylan Alexander.
The draft
guy. Yeah.
Draft.
So speaking to him at training on Monday, he had him ahead of Laylaw as the best pick of the draft. So,
okay.
I think he's going to play and be very good and straight away into round one. Probably starts on the bench, which I think's like suitable anyway. But get him in those rotations. If he plays a bit of wing, cool, doesn't matter. Similar to a North North love putting good players around the ball. So if they're a good player, they're going to see some scoring. It's not like, oh, he's a good player, but we relegate him to the wing. And that means no scoring in Supercoach. He'll be around the mark. And he was in juniors and he will be now. So, yeah, very good player. I think he's going to submarine quite a lot. I've seen a lot of Jagger Smiths, Sid Drapers and whatnot in people's teams.
Yep.
Sullivan's fallen off the map.
That was going to be my question, because there's so much competition at the price, isn't there? You got your Smileys, your Ed Allens, your Levi's, your Jaggers. There's a lot of players.
Even Sardis too.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential players around this price, and you can even save a little bit more, potentially with someone like an Urquhart, who we'll talk about in a sec. So that's probably the main thing for me. Fino Sullivan hasn't actually featured in my side this preseason, and not because I knocked the pick. I don't think he's going to be successful. It's just a few of the other names I've been hearing a little bit more about, I suppose, but definitely one to keep on your watch list. And yeah, there's certainly a world where it could enter my side at some stage, mate. How about young Urquhart, 113,500? We're saving a fair bit of coin here on someone like a Fino Sullivan. What can you tell us about what he's been doing so far, mate?
I think North has finally learnt from a Geelong and a Sydney, where we've got some players and we kind of hide them. Urquhart is definitely that type of player. So speaking to a lot of people, watch his draft highlights. Like, you just see how good of a player he is. He loves getting in the middle. He loves being that guy that grabs the ball and then passes it off. Would have been a top 10 selection if his kicking was a bit better. But this is a kid who it had been identified that his time trial, his 2K time trial, his long distance, his agility wasn't good. And then halfway through the season, start of last year, jumped in with elite sprinters, elite endurance athletes, and really busted his guts to be better. Knocked 20 seconds or so off his 2K time trial. Just hey, this is what I need to do. Looks very defined, looks very strong for what he does already as an 18-year-old, and you know what you're going to get. It's just about breaking into that North team, but he does fill a role that we don't have, and I think something that we kind of lost since Cunnington wasn't there, like that guy that would jump in the middle, get the ball, do some stuff, and then pass it off. When he debuts, it's going to be fun. That's what I'm going to say. But watch and see. Maybe not a right now, but definitely mid-season. Mid-season, we're looking for our last couple of upgrades. If he gets put in the team, you're laughing.
That's what I was just going to touch on. We don't necessarily want all these rookies playing at the start, Big J. We want those blokes to be able to downgrade to when upgrade season is upon us. So great news that he's looking well, having a great preseason to date. Maybe one that we just hopefully can keep in the bank for a little while, and then maybe get him in when the time is ready. Fantastic, mate. Two more players I'm going to go through. One on the screen here is Matt Whitlock, 113,500. Brother was obviously drafted as well this year, which was a great story. But look, is there a chance that this bloke breaks his way into the 22? Obviously more of a key position type play who we generally stay away from when we can in Supercoach. But do you think he'll have any relevance in 2025?
Most likely not this year, but definitely the year after or the year after. As you say, key position, but kind of touch on, I think North in general, especially for Supercoach, has always just got a draftee and debuted them straight away. Like that's just been the tradition. Whereas now it really does feel like, and I love it as a North fan, where there's no pressure for these kids to play. Like you draft them, cool, chuck them in the VFL, dominate, do whatever you need to do. It's not like you have to play straight away. And I think Whitlock's one of those players. Can play back, can play forward. We got him over his brother. And I think just kind of gives you a little bit of faith when you hear stories like North were into them for the last 6 months before the draft. Like we wanted both. We busted our guts in the second day, at the start of the second day before Port took his brother, trying to get a deal. We were trying to give up second round picks from next year, trying to get him in, just because we know how good they are. But I've seen on training as well, just I would not be surprised. Him, a Goad, potentially a Will Dawson who debuted last year. Aiden Core goes down injured. Griffin Lowe goes down injured. Comben goes down injured. Someone comes in. It potentially could have been one of those, alongside a Finbar Maley as well, who's been doing quite well in the back line. So watch and see. There's no pressure there, which is the beautiful thing. I love it. It's just like, cool. When you're ready, come to the team. We finally got key position depth, which is something we haven't had for a very long time.
Very, very exciting, mate. And the last bloke that wasn't on my radar, but you wanted to quickly touch on was young Riley Hardiman. So what can you tell us about what Riley's been doing this preseason, Big J?
One of the big problems with North Melbourne, I think people can see it with a Gota. Let me just quickly check Gota's score.
Gota, he's a forgotten man, isn't he?
Yeah, because Gota might debut as well. So, well, not debut, but play as well. So watch Gota, watch Hardiman, watch potentially Bergman, but I don't think so as well. North has really struggled with this halfback type role, similar to what a Luke McDonald has played for a very long time. We've got wingers, we've got mids, we've got everyone else and tried to play them as halfback defenders, whereas they haven't been those type of players. Hardiman, Gota are actually those type of players. So when looking for that spot, not sure exactly what the North backline is going to look like if McDonald plays or doesn't play. But one of those guys will definitely feature throughout the year and will feature quite a lot, because it's like you finally got the type of player you want. They're quick, they're agile, they can kick, they can intercept, they can defend. It's something that we've been missing quite a lot. So similar to how Archer was a small forward pest, came in, stopped that kind of role for us last year, these players are ready to go this year. It's just about an opportunity. But they're cheap, and I think we need defender rookies. So if they're named, like, why not?
100%, mate. Exciting times. We've talked about some lock and load premiums. We've talked about plenty of mid prices that are serious breakout contenders for 2025. And then we finished on some of these rookies that in a realistic world, they could all get action at some stage this year, but it's not necessarily about what they do this year or next year. It's about their future. It's about their long-term future. And the fact that you've been able to lock in blokes with this amount of talent and add them to your already talented mix, you're going to be a scary, scary proposition, mate. A very, very scary proposition.
I would say for some people, there's been some talk at the moment that Constanti, who came over as part of the Luke Parker deal with Sydney, potentially he plays. It's looking like at the moment he might be number 2 in that small forward position. So maybe Riley Hansen, who came in and played 6 games last year, 165K, could take that role. But I don't think you're going to pick him over Kako or Berry anyway. So just kind of mention that. Don't lock in Constanti at 113K. Be like, hey, there might be someone better who's taken the role. So watch and see there, but I think that's kind of what's happening.
Beautiful advice, Big J. Mate, that is going to do us for the 2025 North Melbourne team preview. I'll tell you what, so much information there to take in. Your knowledge is absolutely phenomenal, as we know on the Roos, Big J. And I'll tell you, I might have to stop doing these team previews because I've only done 2, being the Dogs and North. And how many players are in our squad? 31. Yeah. I reckon 15, 16 are going to be Roos and Dogs because, look, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say I'm excited as you are. I'm absolutely not, but I'm super excited on your behalf for what these blokes can potentially produce this year it's
I will say,
quite good.
I will say something before we head off. I assume that's what we're doing now, but don't be too upset about having too many round 12 bye players. This year, as opposed to last year, where Sydney had like a round 6 bye and then a round 12 bye, the AFL's come in and then made it so every team has their bye, or has one bye before everyone else. So don't be afraid about locking in good players in good positions. Being like, cool, I'll get that advantage from a Parker, from a Daniel, from anyone else. Offload them when the bye comes. I've seen a lot of people complaining online about, cool, I've got 8 primos in round 12 bye and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's okay. Lock in the team that you want. Don't worry about the trades too much. If you're managing your trades well, heck, you could have a couple of boosts left. And then round 12, you've got a few players out. You offload those and now you've got 4 trades that week. So don't worry too much. Pick the best players you can, because I've seen a lot of people complaining about it and worrying about it. Kind of that last year mentality heading into this year.
Very, very good, mate. Well, one thing we don't have to worry about is you blokes putting out content, because as I mentioned in the intro, you are the hardest working content creators out there. You did touch on a couple of things that you were looking to do in the upcoming weeks. But before we do go, Big J, and again, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Give us a bit of a plug again. Like, what else are you getting up to? Where can we find you guys? Tell us all about the Centre Bounce before we say goodbye, mate.
Easy. You can jump on our YouTube at the Centre Bounce. Same with Twitter. We're doing a lot more on Facebook as well. We've got our team review coming out over the next couple of days. We'll be doing those most likely January, February, heading into March as well. So, if you miss out this week, that's okay. Live streams every Monday at 7. When the season's on, pre-season games, we normally do the drive home on Thursdays at 5:30 as well. They're a big hit.
Favorite.
Going to be pumping out our community team stuff as well with our channel members. So that's something pretty exciting. We've started up this year, and just a lot of content. Beautiful thing about us is that we know there's a lot of people that do everything. So if there's something that you guys as fans want to see, just shoot us a message. Hey, what do you think about this? Cool, we'll do a video on it. So open to everything. It's fantastic.
Absolutely love it, Big J. Well, legend, thank you so much again for coming on. Thank you again for what you and Joey have been doing for our Supercoach Swordplay season guide as well. And remember, guys, if you want to get the first spot in the Swordplay, one and only Swordplay Supercoach League this year, make sure you leave a comment down below, and then do the same thing over at Big J's channel. And we'll put you in a live draw probably in the next couple of days, depending on when this gets uploaded. So thanks again for watching. Make sure you check out the Centre Bounce, and be sure to be here in about 2 days' time, where we knock out our 3rd team preview for 2025. So take care, guys. All the best. We'll see you soon next one. Cheers, Big J.
Catch you later.